Hello and welcome to D-SETI. We are talking about the dots in a line phenomenon, connecting the dots. This is a video in the series The Universal Language. So if you don't know what ruler and compass geometry is, are unfamiliar with anomalous marks on the body, please do start at the beginning of the series because that will give you meaningful context to make sense here. The dots in a line phenomenon is one that I discovered on my body in synchronistic and dreamlike ways on the solstice, the summer solstice of 2023. And here is an image of it, and as well as the geometric analysis of it, which I did 6 months or so later. I am acronizing this as dial because it's dots in a line, although it's actually dots in multiple geometric figures. But I like the acronym. I think it's funny because it is perhaps a dial for us to dial in the non-human intelligences that are associated with these marks. It is similar to abduction marks that have been used to prove or support the extraterrestrial abduction narrative hypothesis. My own experience really does stand in contrast to the stereotypical abduction phenomenon, and I say that there's significant support, at least, that most, if not all, of these marks have that are geometric are not necessarily associated with abduction in that way of fearful, against the will. It involves engagement of both respectful free will and consent, and these multiple different ways of being. Anyways, the dots are red, but some are simple indentations. They are puncture wounds. They do cut through the skin. They are unlike the red grid mark in that there are clear missing circles of the top layer of skin, right? There is an association of a kind of a scratching or a pain feeling too. There is a clear regular pattern of dots in a line or geometry. This is not bed bugs or prosaic explanations because these look a lot like bed bugs. They are not, they don't exhibit the qualities of bed bugs in terms of the wounding. People have brought them to doctors. They say, no, they're not bed bugs. These have geometric proportions in them and they are found on the body generally in associations with abduction style dreams or CE5. So they're not bed bugs. No, bed bugs aren't doing the golden ratio proofs on people. They're not putting Orion's belt on people. So that's really important to understand. Yeah, I found once I discovered the geometry on my mark, I looked out. I said, other people's got to experience this. I found 6. Is easy. You can do the geometries yourself. See what you have to say. I did congruence testing on them. I found about 6 others that just didn't have geometry that I could find. So it's not like I'm finding them everywhere, but I've been assisted through synchronicity in finding meaningful clues along this path. Yeah, let's talk about the geometry of dots in a line. So they are placed at regular intervals of dots on a line by using a circle with a unity radius. I'm not 100% sure what to consider the unity circle. It might be the whole line of dots, what used to describe that, like using that as a diameter. It might also be the most regular dot pattern, because we see dot, 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 dash, dot, dot, dash, dot, dot, dot often. So that the distance between the dots may actually be unity ratio. The placement of dots involve either whole number multiples of that unity ratio, so that's 2, that's half, that's 4, generally no more than 2 actually, or extensions of the unity radius to the golden ratio. So that's clear geometry there. So I initially presumed this to be in a line, but I found similar dots, the puncture wound, the geometric, the association with ET dreams, in a 30, 60, 90 triangle with the golden ratio. And I'll show you all these. Hexagonal grid with the golden ratio, and also Orion's belt. So It is associated with ET dreamlike experiences. My own story involves CE5, missing time, regression hypnosis, with non-human intelligence associated with a tall gray typology. I say this in the weird way. I am not saying I engaged with a tall gray. I'm saying the non-human intelligence expressed through the dream imagery of a tall gray that somebody else in my life dreamed of, and said, hey, I think I dreamed of your ET, and gave some really information, aka having tan skin as opposed to gray skin, as well as a psychic I talked to said, hey, there's a tall gray that actually has tan skin behind you who's associated with the hybridization program. And so seeing that, I've seen this in my dream life, and two other people have seen this in dreamlike experiences associated with me. I go, that's actually a meaningful association. In addition, two other people and the first two other dials I discovered were associated with tall grays. The person who has a richer dream memory of the experience says, actually, the gray skin resolved into tan skin, and that tall gray was associated with hybridization programs. So that's a rather odd configuration of details that seems to be too much of a coincidence for me to pass up noting. Two other dials happen to people I've communicated with online, including the hypnotist I worked with to communicate with the NHI that is associated with the presentation of the tall gray. He experienced a mark on the body within a week of the session. I go, that's too much of a coincidence too. So several other marks also have been discovered through users of abduction-related subreddits. So it's in the theme. I have not found dots in a line outside of the extraterrestrial dream phenomena. And please note that I don't actually have examples of consciously remembered waking phase abduction style interactions. These are explicitly dreamlike and associated with intentional contact or people who engage in intentional contact. This is an example of my dial. 3 regular dots and a kind of smear of something else. That smear of something else you see in the top right resolves into 4 puncture wounds, clearly shown in this photo that I took several days later, where there's some healing taking place, and you can see the damage to the top layer of skin, as well as some more clarity around the dots. Here's the analysis. The dots in the red are, on the left, are placed using the unity radius. On the right, they are placed using a whole number multiple to it, or else the golden ratio. And then the two sets are essentially placed in a way determined by the golden ratio. Here's a much clearer geometric drawing of them, and I'm sort of trying to create a geometric color language to help express what's going on. All of the pink circles here are what I term the unity radius. The red circles are drawn in proportion to that. That's a whole number proportion. In my case, it's really hard to justify or prove this whole number ratio, but in some of the other clearer markings, it is extremely clear. The yellow circle in the middle, and you can see a sort of triqueta, 3-petaled kind of trinity knot experience happening there. That is a geometric construction to extend the unity radius to golden ratio, which is then used to place the other dots. And so that's essentially it. It's unity circles with the gold and placement and golden ratio bisected so we can get several times so we can get the radius of the dots. This is a clear and distinct geometric language that is expressive of meaning, that uses constituent parts. So we've got something that looks like noun, verbs, and objects here. And it looks as if the dots and the placements of the dots have kind of a uniqueness to them that express language as well. I'm not sure what it is. I'm just noting this because I feel as if working with it in this way will produce an understanding of the deeper language, let's say. Here's one of the clearest examples of dots in a line. I think it is the clearest. It's by far the clearest. It's an order of magnitude clearer than many of the others. All of the dots are essentially within whole number ratios. It's very, very clear. The red circles express the unity radius. The green ones are the golden ratio. And interestingly enough, the word phrase, the three dots at the rightmost, are all displaced 1/8 the unity ratio radius. Of the two dots up, the dot to the rightmost is 2 dots over. That feels as if I go, oh, this is meaningful. This is very, very meaningful. It's so clear. This is an expressive of how they're using deviation from the regular patterns to express meaning. This is an example of a very clearly enunciated word. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's saying, but when we compare it with these, we go, oh, okay, actually, we're now starting to understand the flavor of these different words. Here's another analysis. Again, dots in a line, very clear. Unity radius, golden ratio associated with CE5. Another one, this is not necessarily associated with CE5. The experiencer has a tremendous amount of body marks. There's about 3 of them that have this kind of quality, it seems to me. Other ones are like this typical bruises or scratches and things like that. Again, the interesting thing here is these are not red dots. They are not the stereotypical dots that we experience. They are indentions, or sort of like puncture, but like no redness. These may be healed. These may be something else. I'm not quite sure. This is very much included because it expresses the whole number ratio from radiuses of the dots to the line. It expresses unity radius as well as the golden ratio. The dot in my dial that gave me the clue about golden ratio was one of these dots. It was not a red dot, it was an indented dot. So they used something like 3 different types of dots in my mark, and this is one of the types of dots. Here we've got very, very typical dots. So these are very clear dots. They express whole number ratio to unity. It sort of like makes sense, and these are really the experiencer said, hey, these are Orion's Belt and Giza Plateau. This is what it is. And I go, okay, that makes sense. He put them together in this photo. I drew on top of it to illustrate the congruence of the figures. This level of producing like straight lines to see how big are the angles when we extend them really far out is one way of doing kind of congruence testing, because if the angles were larger or smaller or something like that, then it would not make that much sense. But we have very, very similar things here. Here is a typical dot. Typical dots, they're set in a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And these triangles are kind of interesting to me, but they're very, very similar to bed bug bites. Bed bugs bite in a line, they bite in triangles. They have a kind of a quality that we don't see in these dots. These dots actually are very circular, and they're not bed bug bites. They're not bites. They're clearly not. but it's so similar that people go, oh, those are bed bugs, let me not think about it. So, and even the triangles, I go, this is a perfect 30, 60, 90 triangle, right? But if we need any more proof, that this is a geometric communication. The only other birthmark in the situation is set within a whole number multiple of the golden ratio used to describe the 30, 60, 90 triangle. And it's just like, if you want any more, we probably could zoom out the image and find another mark that is congruent with where some of these construction lines might end up. So. And here is another interesting one. This comes from the hypnotist I worked with. I'm not sure if this is a square grid or a hexagonal grid. My intuition tells me it's a hexagonal grid. I drew it this way. This is a very elegant way of drawing a hexagonal grid with dots placed at golden ratio. The photo itself is really, really hard to work with. It is on the ankle. The angle of the self photography was such that the leg had to be bent, and the skin had to be stretched and the angle was off. So we have about 3 of those photos I worked with and had to do a lot of guesswork. So if you're going to send me photos, these were taken from social media, but if you're going to send me photos, send me them straight on and without the skin sort of stretched or taut, and that will be really helpful in discerning the geometries. This triquetra figure is used all of the time in dots in a line. The presentation of this is, to my mind, a kind of a stereotypical experience. I didn't see it in the Orion's belt one, but here it's been in every other one I've seen. So it sort of indicates to me that this is kind of a cue that there is a dots in a line phenomenon happening. This is very similar to the Bard code. I really have to call this out because interestingly enough, okay, I need to give you context. Bard code comes from the work of Alan Green. Alan Green studied folio of Shakespeare's sonnets that had interesting dots on it that seemed to be oddly placed. And in this title page where it has like Shakespeare sonnets up top, there's these dots and these lines. And this might look really much like a kind of a foundation of a crop circle, but when you look at the geometry behind it, this is like sort of what I end up doing. You see that there is hidden mathematical proportions within them. These actually talk about the Giza pyramid proportions. So here we have a connection, and I just have to note, right, that the clue for this this code actually is the double T, TT. Alan Green calls it the double tau. Interestingly enough, the very clear dots in a line that I analyzed right after mine, that I said this is it. This means something. I found this. I had synchronicity around it. The abbreviations of the Reddit username is TT. So I thought that was really kind of fun. But this is very similar. Then I'm showing some resonances to dots connected by simple circles and lines that are expressive of mathematical proportions that are encoded in the Giza pyramids. Like it's too much to really deny that there is some level of mathematical or geometric intelligent communication happening. All right, it is also very similar to UAP sightings. So this is a video put forward recently by Jimmy Blanchett, looking on analyzing a CE5 put forward by this woman, Linda. And so she said, I want to see UAPs in a cross and then a tetrahedron. She felt really inspired to photograph the sky, and she caught it in a very synchronistic way. The V-shaped formation shifting into these geometric forms. Jimmy went ahead and analyzed the formations. I think he uses a protractor. I don't think he's using ruler and compass, but he's using all of the geometries that we might derive from ruler and compass to, he's testing those constants against that. So it seems to me as if his work proving or showing these proportions and things like that is a sort of similar type of application of the geometries I'm talking about. And lo and behold, he finds the golden ratio. He finds whole number multiples. like he finds information that is seeming to be encoded in some of these other ones. And so I mean, he's saying the intelligence producing geometric shapes on demand contains information about the keys of our universe. This is what I'm seeing happen with a dots in a line. People do CE5. We're receiving geometric shapes that contain information about the keys of the universe. I go, they're pregnant with meaning. I don't know what that meaning is. I'm saying these are geometric objects, and the congruence testing with the ruler and compass methods of geometry proves that to anyone who wants to go through the ruler and compass constructions. Finally, I need a note. It involves synchronicity and high strangeness. Literally, my dreams told me to study geometry 6 months to the day of receiving my dial mark. This is a bisection of a circle, the unity radius of which is a half a year, the diameter of which is like a year, right? I mean, like it's crazy. So if we start thinking about time as a circle, we're starting to see a clear division there. 6 months for me personally. I started working with dreams. My dreams literally told me how to do this, and it guided me in a way I didn't understand. I didn't realize I was working towards this analysis. Like I said in the earlier video series, I thought I was going to produce a series of ASMR-style sacred geometries. I posted inquiry to Costa Macrese's ET Let's Talk Facebook group. I said, hey, I'm seeing geometric meanings in anomalous body marks arising from CE5s. Does anybody else have information about it? The next day, Costa approves my post and Jimmy Blanchett's post, and he's revealing information on a several-year-old video about the same geometries. That's not an accident. We're the expressions in UAPs, the lights in the sky, are the same type of expressions we're seeing in dots in a line. And it feels very similar to red grid mark and crop circles. So what are the intelligences involved? Well, the intelligences involved with dial are observation and appropriate interpretation of intent requests. In my experience, they have been very respectful, non-harmful, and had appropriate interpretations of the intent requests. These are not abductions. We are not victims. We said yes and gave permission to contact with non-human intelligences. I explicitly gave permission to the red grid mark makers to communicate with me in this way. I'm not saying that the dream images I have of the tall gray are the causes of these other marks. I am just saying that there is an appropriate and observative response to intent requests here. We also see intelligences associated with control or cause of transpersonal dream imagery. A tall gray that resolves to having tan skin associated with extraterrestrial human hybridization programs is a rather unique dream image, the odds of which emerging in my dream experience, another experiencer's dream experiences, a friend of mine's dream experiences dreaming about me, as well as a psychic's experience who directly contradicted my expression that no, it's not tan, it's great. Nope, it's certainly tan. But seeing the resonance in the other dreamer's dream about me, as well as the other experiencers of tall grays with tan skin associated with these things, it's too much. We have to assume either there's some level of shared dreaming happening, telepathy, or control or cause of transpersonal dream images. In addition to that, we have the geometric design, as well as the technical application, as well as the coordination of that application. These are all the intelligences involved with dial. Seems to me like intelligence like we know it. So the possible implications of dial are that the marks on the body may be more than artifacts of medical procedures or abductions, right? Art may be a more appropriate precedent than poorly performed medical procedures by strange doctors in strange spaceships. They may be expressed from an as of yet unidentified dream phenomena, which is similar to dream apportation. This is something like stigmata. We have precedents of this. We have precedents of marks on the body. Jacques Vallée has done a wonderful review of that. So we don't need to invoke new hypothesis or new precedents. We need to look to historic precedents to see what we can find as well. The mark makers appear to be observant, empathetic, and mathematically capable intelligences with the capability to mark the body or the earth for this multimodal communication. It's not just geometry, it's geometry plus dreams, it's geometry and intuitions, it's synchronicity, it's much, much more than that. So observation and direct communication may actually be telepathic or consciousness based. The dreams happened when these marks happened. That may be the communication and cause of the mark. But also, the mark may involve technology, especially in the case of the red grid mark phenomena. We see the technical application of abstract geometric design. These intelligences seem to want us to learn the simple language of ruler and compass geometry and to communicate with them. The method is very simple to learn. Children can do it. It takes a few hours, and then you have enough skills to build very, very complex geometric figures. So I would encourage you to do that. It's important to note that the non-human intelligence associated with my dial is communicative and active. It has communicated with me in many different ways. Most of them are dreamlike in nature, which are not proof or historic. I am not making historic or objective claims. I'm saying in non-dual experiences, typically understood to be like dreams, I've had non-harmful, empathetic, and respectful ways of engagement that lead to novel insights that have produced like an A paper in my first PhD class around this. I literally worked with those dreams and that NHI through regression hypnosis, through channeling, to elaborate the hypotheses that I've put forward in academic papers, right? Like this is, we don't need to go very far for me. I don't need to go very far for me to understand what the message or communication this NHI has for me and for the world. It wants to communicate, and I'm sharing that in the best way I can, right? It's communicated through a significant dream series that's in line with the phenomenology of dream shamanism. I've written about this in that academic paper. I have like 5 or more hours of regression hypnosis associated with this NHI. I have audio recordings of channel conversations. I often do an audio dictation of my daily diary, basically. And sometimes it shows up and says, now we're talking. You're about 80% connected. So use that as a measure of discernment. And it has I have documented promptings for me to learn and understand ruler and compass geometry for around 2 years that I've ignored and finally listened to. It's important to know that it has claimed, but I don't make these historic and objective claims here because I don't remember them, and I would prefer to offer a sense of healthy skepticism and common sense and discernment around this. It's claimed physical visitation using UAP craft throughout my life. It has claimed association with hybridization programs. It has claimed responsibility for family witnessed UAP sightings and shared missing time episodes that are corroborated by my family who have seen the outward manifestations of these things. It says, that was me. I don't know if I want to believe that right yet. I'm not ready for that quite yet. And it's also, there's this ontological status, this claimed an ontological status that makes the distinction between extraterrestrial and terrestrial not significant. So we're not talking about different planets here. We're thinking more like realities. So it has communicated. This is part of the Missing Time Found video series. This is an outline for a book I have about regression hypnosis. This one NHI really wants its perspective expressed in this very important dialogue, and it's done so through synchronicity and dreams related to marks on my body. And so here there's an hour and a half lecture I produced. In the day I received the mark. It wanted me to do that. It told me to do that. And that is from this whole Missing Time Found book, that series that I wrote about 4 or 5 chapters of it through lucid dreaming that was taken directly into early morning expressions that seems more to me like channeling than academic work, honestly. Here is the chapter, the academic work, the paper. I will put this forward on the D-SETI website and likely will make a course on it. But again, we talk about alien abduction experience, shamanic dream work, hypnosis, and analyze the different schools of thought. And I offer my testimony of relating to this dream character here now. I didn't have this connection with a dots in the line until he offered keys to analysis, and I say thank you so much. But I just need to say, hey, here's documentation. I had every week I had to write an update as to my anomalous investigations, and I explored Enochian magic, I explored walking in the woods, I explored fairy stuff, like nature spirits, and he would just show up, and oftentimes I would write about it, and lo and behold, I have 10 journal documentations about this engagement that happened in an imaginal space. But now seeing the congruence testing between the ruler and compass method and my own dots in a line phenomenon, I go, this is a mathematical communication. This is showing me that intelligence can communicate in this way. I'm not asking you to believe that. I'm just sharing my testimony right now. What does this all mean? Like I've been saying, the ruler and compass method of construction, congruence testing with these anomalous marks, shows that we're dealing with mathematical and geometric objects, not artifacts of natural accidents or poorly performed medical procedures. We're not dealing with abduction and victimization. We're dealing with sophisticated mathematical communications that need to be understood in a multimodal way of engagement, aka art and science. you know, not just codes. You play around with it, right? Like it's music probably will be great to bring into. The mark makers here are intelligent, presumed to be life like we know it. They may be sneaky humans or dream entities or ETs, but they are relating to ruler and compass methods of geometry like we would. They are observant and have an effective theory of mind, meaning they can communicate ideas across these things in a way that are appropriate to how we might learn. And finally, they express through objective, interpersonal, and subjective means of communication. Given the association with CE5 and intentional contact, it means that we are likely in the later stages of a documented and meaningful conversation with non-human intelligences who are training us to understand the geometry necessary to relate to this world, relate to them in meaningful ways. So this comes out of the context of D-SETI, and the D-SETI stands for the Dream Search for or the Dream Studies of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, depending on your perspective. I offer dreamwork sessions. I have an education in psychology, hypnosis, and I'm a PhD student in integral noetic science. You can work with me to find meaning in your dreams or dreamlike experiences. It's important to note that all of this ET contact, dreamwork is triggering, taboo, and projection prone, so please be mindful. You can get more information at dseti.org. So thanks for going on this journey. Thanks for listening to my story. This is a rather strange story. The marking itself is sort of ambiguous, at least half of it is, and that is actually in tune with some of the more deeper personal resonances of this work that I don't need to get into, in part because of the overwhelming congruence of these other dots in the line phenomena, as well as the fact that we've got the golden ratio inside of it and that sort of thing. It proves an intentional communication. It was really, really strange to receive this, to go, oh, something really, truly did happen. What that is, I don't know. It's a mystery. It took me 6 months to even think about it, and I didn't even know how to approach it. And my dreams literally gave me the skills to discern the message. I am not claiming I am a smart guy. I will claim I have that, but I'm not smart in that way. It's like it took me 6 months to even think about geometry after some clearly anomalous body marking happen. There's some sort of psychological block to it that I couldn't get through. That my own dream states, which were seemingly controlled by an extraterrestrial dream shaman, taught me how to do this. It's strange, it's weird, but do the congruence test. Use the ruler and compass methods of geometry to do congruence tests with anomalous marking of the body, of crop circles, and of these, I guess, UAP sightings now, and we can then start to discern, hey, these are mathematical communications. There is no other explanation for mathematical communications than intelligence like we know it, which is the mandate of SETI, right? Which is the mandate of SETI, to find and engage life and intelligence like we know it. These marks on the body may actually show us, may actually invite us to engage with proof with that. And you actually have to do the work of learning ruler and compass geometry, building the constructions, and doing a congruence test. That is work you have to do. You can't be lazy and rely on my work. You have to do that because you are actually generating the mathematical geometric idea in your heart and mind when you do this. And then you see it in nature. That's the connection. It happens in the mind and heart and soul. It doesn't happen out there in the world of arithmetic numbers or scientific proof. It happens in your heart. You go, aha, I understand it. It is a mystical moment of gnosis, this geometry. You're not, throw out everything you learned about math from public school because that's not necessarily relevant. That is the application of abstractions from this more pure mathematics of geometry. It is the abstract application in order to train technicians, but not creators. That's what the public school education of mathematics has given you. You need to step outside of it into this more pure mathematics of geometry so that you can do these congruence tests, so that you can have a direct experience of that congruence, and you say, there's no other reason for this except for mathematical communication, geometric communication. That's what I'm talking about here. And you have to engage with it. It's very much like dream work, insofar that you cannot study dreams or dreamlike things without engaging your own practice in it. And I'm saying that this communication requires your own engagement in ruler and compass geometry, or something very similar, like using the protractors and figuring out the constants and things like that, and also understanding what those constants are. So thanks for doing that. I think it's going to be incredible. I can't imagine where this will lead, but I actually can because I've had dreams of it, right? You can dream this first. It doesn't matter. Start playing. Start being creative. It's a multimodal experience. So I just wanted to share that. This has been such a wild journey, and I feel as if this is a breakthrough. And I feel as if the world is different. My world was different when I received this mark in association with a dream. I knew it was personally significant. But to see the geometry incongruence testing with it says, aha, this is proof of intelligent communication, right? And then to see it in all these other marks on the body in a language that is expressed in the proportions of the Giza pyramid, movements of lights in the sky, of crop circles, it's the same universal language being applied through the constraints of the technologies, which will give us very strong clues about how to use some of these technologies to do miraculous things. Just to let you know, when we look at the universal language as expressed through these different modes of communication, it will give us clues about the nature of those modes of communication, as well as this universal language, as well as bring us into an understanding about how to express in those anomalous ways. This geometry shows that these beings, these intelligences, are intelligences like we know it, and are responsive to communication in ways that are very unexpected, out of my control necessarily, but that's like making art. That's like being in a relationship. and it's not like an objective domination of nature. And so when our science comes from that sort of domination of nature idea, we start to think, yeah, we gotta dominate this sort of geometric realm. But no, it's actually much more creative, much more mystical, much more dance-oriented and relational. So I know I've just spouted a bunch of mysticism to you. I really don't know how to conclude this. It's a rather odd experience, and I've not fully integrated yet, but it is very important to communicate. That's what the NHI is saying. So I'm just following my intuition here. And I hope that it gives you the courage and inspiration to do that yourself, because this is really world-changing. Thank you.